All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to explore the core philosophy behind homeopathy. And we're not going to get into the modern debates, but instead, we're going to look at it through the eyes of one of its most important thinkers from the early 20th century, Dr. James Tyler Kent. We're going straight to the source to really understand the principles he laid out.
So Kent kicks things off with this huge foundational quote from homeopathy's founder, Samuel Hahnemann. There are no diseases, but sick people. Now that sounds really strange to us today, right? We're so used to thinking in terms of having a disease. We say, I have the flu or I have arthritis. This one little sentence just flips that whole idea on its head.
So what on earth did Hahnemann and Kent actually mean by this? Well, to really get this radical idea, we have to understand that in their world, there are two fundamentally different, almost opposing ways of looking at the entire field of medicine.
And that brings us to what Kent described as the Great Divide in medicine. It's this philosophical clash between what he called a medicine of principles and a medicine of experience. Now, check this out. Kent frames these two schools of thought in a really interesting way. On one side, you've got homeopathy, the medicine of principles. He argues this is all governed by fixed, unchanging natural laws. It's trying to understand the cause long before you ever see the result. Then on the other side, you have what he calls allopathy, or the medicine of experience. He describes this as being based on, shifting opinions and what we can observe. It only deals with the results of a disease, the things you can actually see and measure, like damaged tissues.
This whole philosophical split forces us to ask a really, really basic question, one we almost never think about. Who or what is actually sick? Is it your liver? Is it your lungs? Or is it something else entirely?
Kent dedicates a huge part of his philosophy to answering this exact question. So let's dig into his central argument as we try to figure out his answer to who is the sick.
So to illustrate his point, Kent uses a scenario that might sound pretty familiar even to us today. He asks us to just imagine a patient who feels absolutely awful. They go to the doctor with this long list of symptoms, but they walk away with no clear physical diagnosis. The patient complains, I can't sleep, I've got all these aches and pains, my bowels aren't working right, I have these wild dreams, I just feel this constant nervous excitement. Now, these are real debilitating experiences for those person, but they don't point to some specific named disease that a physical exam can actually find.
And this just perfectly captures the patient's dilemma. They say, and this is a direct quote from Kent's lectures, I have been physically examined from head to foot, and they tell me I am not sick, I have no disease. So from the perspective of a medicine of experience, where a disease is only what you can measure in the tissues, this person isn't sick, at least not yet.
But for Kent, this is just nonsense. So here's the crucial point. His philosophy argues that the person is sick way before their organs show any physical damage. The sickness exists in what he calls the man prior to the organs.
So who is this sick man? Well, according to Kent, it is not the physical body. The real patient is the inner, non-physical self. And he defines this as the combined will and understanding, basically our consciousness, our mind, our emotional and intellectual core. That is who is truly sick. So from this viewpoint, those pages and pages of symptoms aren't just random complaints. They are the language of this internal disorder. The inner self is expressing its sickness on the outside, trying to communicate that something is wrong on a much deeper level, long before the body's tissues ever start to break down.
Okay, so if the person is sick, and not just their body parts, what does it actually mean to be cured? This idea is absolutely central to what Kent calls the direction of a cure.
Kent looks back to Hahnemann's highest ideal of a cure. He argues it's not just about making a tumor disappear or a rash go away. A true cure is the rapid, gentle, and permanent restoration of the health. So the goal isn't just to remove symptoms, it's to restore order to the entire person. To understand what a cure is, Kent says you first have to understand the order of sickness itself. In his philosophy, all true disease flows from the inside out. It starts right at the very center in the mind, the will and understanding. Then it disorders what he calls the internal vital force. And only at the very end does it finally show up at the circumference as physical damage. So it only makes sense that a true homeopathic cure has to reverse this whole process. It has to work from the outside in, restoring order from the center outwards. And this is why Kent says a sign of true healing can actually be the reappearance of old external symptoms, like a skin rash. As the center, the person's mind and well-being, is restored to order, the disease gets pushed outward from the most vital organs to the least vital until it finally leaves the body.
So what does all of this really mean for the role of the doctor? Well, this philosophy completely redefines what Kent saw as the physician's true mission. From this perspective, the physician's job totally shifts. It's not about finding a name for a disease and then just removing the physical evidence. According to Kent, the true goal is to perceive the disordered state of the whole person, their mind, their emotions, their energy, and to heal that. Ultimately, what Kent's philosophy offers us, and you don't have to agree with it to see this, is a fundamentally different lens to look at health and sickness through. And that leaves us with a pretty provocative question to think about. How might our own approach to healing change if we started to see sickness not as just a fault in our body's machinery, but as a message from our whole self?